and go into the elections. There's no gainsaying that the 2023 presidential election is critical in the life of Nigeria. But sadly, there seems to be an attempt to get it encumbered by ethnicity and religion, thereby distracting Nigerians from the critical issues of development. Some say that the first red flag came when the three most discussed political parties picked their candidates from the three pre-1963 regions: the Eastern region, the Northern region, and the Western region.
As the 2023 elections draw near, there have been many attempts by people to keep the critical issues of development and security out of the front burner and push up ethnicity and religion. There's no gainsaying that in a multicultural and multi-religious country like Nigeria, there is a compelling need to ensure inclusiveness and balance, and manifestos should be gotten right.
To discuss this further, we are joined by Chukwuma Okenwa. He's a public affairs analyst and the executive director, Lead Network Africa. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Okenwa.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. So I'll start by asking, is there a possibility, and, this might be, not just in Nigeria, but in other African countries also, is there a possibility of having an election season that is not infused with the, religious and tribal antics?
Not exactly within Nigeria context at the moment. We know compared to other climes, people has been trained, people are mature enough and educated enough to focus on the real issues that affect the people, rather than other trivial matters such as ethnicity and religion, because it's very important for us to note that bad governance does not respect your ethnicity, and no region in Nigeria is immune from the impact of bad governance. So it does appear that despite religion, despite ethnicity, the Nigerian leadership elite has delivered bad governance to every region. So Nigeria should be wiser by now to learn to focus on the key issues and not to be distracted based on trivialities. It is 100% possible to focus on the real issues, and the citizens must say, well, the audience we represent now is the audience that want to focus on how we're going to tackle the issue of the spiraling inflation, how we're going to tackle the issue of ASU, how we're going to tackle the issue of infrastructural deficits rather than on trivialities.
These trivialities that you've mentioned have become a very important part, fortunately or unfortunately, of our governance and our politics. But it wasn't always that way. When we had the 1993 elections, we know that, right now we're having conversations about the Muslim ticket, which a lot of people have come out to strongly criticize. But this was able to fly in 1993. What is something that has changed between then and now? And why are we so focused on religious and ethnicity in our politics?
Over time, of course, Nigerians are better aware now, because whilst Nigerians innocently voted for the Muslim ticket, but it's clear that even at as old as that time, there has been that deliberate attempt by one religion to despise, to relegate the other religion, and it is visible. And it's become more concern, especially with this current administration, where we've seen visibly, the Muslims commit some mayhems in communities of Christians. When you take a case study of what happens in Kaduna, how we in a state where you have as much number of Christians as Muslims, you have cases where the southern Kaduna complains of oppression and the governor will not be able to stand to it. You can only see threats of that the perpetrators will be brought to book, and yet no perpetrator is brought to book. So what that suggests is that, well, if you're not a Muslim, you are not safe. And that is the concern that many Christians are having, because it does appear that progressively there is that active esteem for one religion above the other. And that is why Nigerians are saying, well, in a society like Nigeria, there should be inclusion. And I think that is the best template for us, because at the moment, our reality as a people is that ethnicity and, of course, religion, it's our reality. But beyond that, let me say something that it's actually a concern that the two major political parties at the moment, right, who never envisaged the possibility of a third force arising, have actually resorted to ethnic and religious blackmailing which is not good, and on all those forms of profiling, rather than focusing on the real issue. I've followed the campaign processes, and it does appear that the Labour Party candidates seem undistracted, focusing on issues that matter to Nigerians. But it's not possible for the APC candidate or PDP to grant interviews without gaslighting the Labour Party candidate. And I think they should begin to focus on issues that matter more to Nigerians rather than trying to profile someone based on ethnicity or religion.
Well, some parts of Africa have joined in congratulating Kenya in the recently held 2022 elections, where President-elect William Ruto has emerged victorious. Is there anything Nigeria can learn from the just concluded elections?
What we can learn, of course, the election in Kenya was largely contested. And of course, it's very clear that that's going to be like a typograph of what we're going to see in 2023. So let the incumbent, of course, be committed, not just in words, and especially like now, I know that in some previous elections that have happened in some states, the current administration has referenced that as a kind of a case study that they are committed to conducting or allowing a credible election. But that's not enough, because what we are going to see in 2023, which is a general election, there's not going to be like enough spread of security or that intense focus of the media on one state, or even a situation where you could have up to 20 governors focused in a state. So if the incumbent should lose the ruling party, they should be able to allow that sportsmanship, right? Like we've seen in some other Senate claims and of course in Kenya, and allow the will of the people to rule, engage further. And with that, I think we can be on the right path of believing more in our electoral processes.
All right. Mr. Kenyan, I also want you to go further on something that you were speaking about not long ago. If you've been following, the news, you must have seen that there has been some colorations of the Labour Party candidate, Peter Obi, as an Igbo candidate. Some, persons have even linked him, with the IPOB. And in the last 48 hours, I believe, Mieti Allah also put out a statement saying that they will not be supporting the Labour Party candidate and asking Fulanis across the country to, also reject him. How dangerous would you say these things are, in the build-up to the elections? The way that he has been seen. He's also been criticized also for going for church services, and those videos that have emerged in the last few weeks of him being given a round of applause in church. Do you think that these things are justified?
Well, I think those criticisms are baseless. Linking a Nigerian with IPOB, which we know at the moment, it's a kind of, it's a terrorist group, right? According to the laws of the land, it's been proscribed. I want to state it emphatically that not all Igbos are IPOB members, right? And it is clear to get that. And never in the life of Obi has he been in any way apologetic to the cause of IPOB. He has never in any way defended them. But we've seen visibly some Northern light, even those of them in leadership position, they show sentiments from Mieti Allah, which we know is more or less like a terrorist group, considering the mayhems they have caused across Nigerians. But the federal government refused to proscribe that particular group. And now you have one group that ought to be proscribed, gaslighting another, and trying to use that to hoodwink a candidate that have demonstrated, cross-border for all Nigerians, that he's not in any way ethnic and of any sort. And then when you have a mix of a Muslim candidate and a Christian candidate, of course, the Christians should be able to rally votes around churches. It's normal. And he has a Muslim as his vice, as his running mate, should be able to also do that in the mosque. Because we know Nigeria is a religious nation, and largely the two major religions are Muslims and Christians. So you should be able to appeal to them. So I see nothing wrong about that. And if eventually the Labour Party candidates win, he has not in any way demonstrated that he's going to be maybe the president of Christians. Judging that visibly he has a Muslim as the vice. But can this then be said about the APC candidate, who, like in a nation like Nigeria, where you have almost equal number of Christians and Muslims, he had to choose a fully Muslim. So the question will now be, what is in there for Christians if this man emerges as Mr. President?
I'd like to ask you the the relationship between religion and politics. And I'll ask you this because we've seen several instances. For example, the president-elect in Kenya, in his acceptance speech, spoke highly about the influence of religious leaders who had stayed behind to wait for the polls to be tallied, who had prayed for the people of Kenya. We've seen even here in Nigeria, several political parties, we see them going from one religious house to another. We've seen also religious leaders using their platform to be able to, to decide or to encourage their followers to be involved in politics, and also, sometimes deciding what party they vote for. What would you say is the role of religion and religious leaders in politics, especially as we inch closer towards 2023 elections?
According to Karl Marx, religion is the opium of the people. And what that means is religion shapes our ideologies, our ethics, our philosophies and perspectives about life. So basically it gives people like a foundation, because we know that, like for instance, in the Islamic religion where people are taught that you are first an Islam, right? You are first a Muslim before a member of any country. And many of them believe that because it does appear that this is like a defining foundation for them. And that's why like religious leaders have like a great role to play. Because for instance, we know that citizens paying tithes or their zakat in the Islamic faith, it's not a challenge as much as paying things like tax, which they see as a duty and you have to compel them. But come to think about it, if religious leaders also campaign the narrative that see, in fulfilling the obligations of the laws, you are being a good, of the nation, you are being a good citizen, you can see more compliance. Unfortunately, sometimes our leaders do not do that, of helping people to actually establish that you must give Caesar that which belongs to Caesar and give to God which belongs to God. So they keep emphasizing giving only to God. And of course, when they are talking about giving only to God, they are talking about bringing it to the religious place. And then you now also come to think about it, what a Muslim in most cases see as violence, if it go beyond the bounds of what the religion defines as violence. As we know that if you want to discuss any subject matter, maybe in the place of research, you look at the theoretical or the conceptual framework. So the religion actually gives people conceptual framework to define what is right or wrong. And that could portend danger or prospects for any nation.
Right.
Thank you very much, Chukwuma Okenwa, for joining us for the conversation this morning. I mean, we've had very important conversations, and this is still ongoing, so we look forward to having you again.